So, what's the Street Scrambler really like? Keep watching for my road test and review. So there is the Street Scrambler. Fantastic looking bike. The question is, what does it ride like? So I'm going to get this bike out on my usual route. First thing you notice when you sit astride it, it is taller. On my Street Twin I can sit with my feet flat on the ground, legs quite bent. I can still flat foot this, but it is that little bit taller. You've got higher, wider bars and a very comfortable seat. Again, I'm not a big fan of these mirrors, so they would be the first thing I would change, but rearward vision from these is pretty good. Okay, same starting sequence as all of the modern retros. Clutch in, pretty quiet on tick over. Let's give it a run and see what we think. Now the factory exhaust is a great sounding exhaust. It actually doesn't sound like a 900. It sounds like it may be a smaller capacity bike, or maybe that's just because I'm used to my Street Twin with the X-Pipe, and the Vance and Hines is a much deeper, lower noise, but it sounds great. First thing you notice on the bike is just how nice and light and nimble it is, and easy to ride. You've got that very light clutch lever action. The gearbox shares a gearbox with the Street Twin, which is lovely and slick. There's a difference to the way that the motor is tuned, so although this is still the 900cc motor that you get in the Street Twin, in the Street Scrambler it's running with a slightly different tune, and that means that the peak torque comes in a little bit lower, approximately 500 RPM lower in the rev range, so the bike actually feels a little bit more punchy in stock form than a stock Street Twin. Same power output, just that torque comes in, peaks a little bit earlier, and so you get a great place to put a road sign there, and so you get a little bit more punch to it. But let's get around this corner if it's nice and clear. I can give you an idea. Here we go. So from second gear at 30 miles an hour. Yeah, nice and punchy. It is just an enjoyable bike to ride. It's nice and nimble. You can throw it around. Oh, mind the poo. Now I don't want to make this review a comparison to the Street Twin, but I'm going to make those parallels because that's what I ride normally, and I've been riding one of those for a good year and a half or so. With this bike, I think for me, if this bike had been out at the time that I bought my Street Twin, it probably would have been my choice, given the type of roads that I ride on, which are these roads around here. But this bike is absolutely perfect for it. The higher ride height, the higher bars and wider bars give a really great level of control. Things like the addition of the Rev Counter on the front here and just neatening up the style of it, I think is great. It doesn't feel like a tall bike. You do sit upright noticeably on this, and I've noticed that once you get into some faster speeds, you do notice that you've got that upright riding position. You feel it much more on the chest. So if you're going to do any long rides or touring on it, which I think you could on this bike, you know, you'd probably want to put a fly screen on there. I'm pretty sure the dart fly screen that I've got for my Street Twin would fit on this as well, although the arms are a slightly different shape, but I'm pretty sure that's something they'll be on. The stock single seat I think is wonderful. It is really comfortable. I'm really impressed with that. Now, to get this bike to me from the dealers, I spent an hour or so riding up from Jack Lilley, and a quick shout out to the guys at Jack Lilley for organising this, and Steve for sorting me out with the bike this morning. But I rode it for an hour or so to get back home, and that gave me a chance to get to know the bike. And initially it felt odd. I'd just got off the street to it. It's taller, it's got the bigger wheels. But you soon settle down to it, and if you're coming to this bike as a new rider, it's not intimidating at all, but it's such a comfortable, easy bike to flick around, very manoeuvrable. I was a little bit worried that because it was taller it would feel like a little bit top heavy, but you haven't got that at all. It's notable that the weight is being carried a little bit higher, but it's an absolute pleasure to ride. As well as a great riding position, you've got nice clear instrumentation. The Speedo has got this Rev Counter function, which initially I didn't think, well, actually I'm not too worried about that, but I found that to be quite useful. As we've come to expect with Triumph, the build quality appears to be pretty good. It's very nicely finished. You've got quite a different setup at the front here for the headlight mounts, which don't incorporate a section to hold the Speedo. That's done slightly differently. One of the issues I have, as much as I love my Street Twin, is that it is a little bit cramped, and I tend to find that my legs are bent fractionally more, and I have to lean forward. This feels actually like a more comfortable riding position, not that the Street Twin's uncomfortable. And having those handlebars that are wider and taller also means if you need to stand up, you've got a much better control. Bars are in the right place, you're not having to kind of lean and stretch for them. So for off-road riding, these bars are in a great position. Now, a few people have commented about these high-level exhausts, and that they make your legs get hot, or you have to ride with the nod position. I think that might be true of the old air-cooled model, but this model, no problem at all. I don't even know that pipe's there. I can grip the tank with my knees, and the heat shield is just touching the inside of my calf. But having said that, I rode this bike back from Jack Lilley, so I was riding for an hour or so. I took the cross-country route to get back, and when I got home, the heat shield was warm, but not hot. So I was able to touch the heat shield with bare hands and hold my hand on it, and that gave me no problems whatsoever. The shield around the cat gets a little bit hotter, but the one at the back doesn't, so I have no problems with that. I think even probably in the winter, if you're riding this when it's a bit colder, it's probably quite nice just to be able to touch your leg against that heat shield and just warming up. But yeah, no problems with burning legs or anything like that. So the brakes, you've just got a single disc on here, but again, they pull up really quite nicely. So this bike of stock comes with the Metzeler Tourance tyres, which I've yet to try on anything other than tarmac, but they're great on the tarmac. Not noisy, you don't feel any excessive vibration. They're pretty grippy as well. The one thing I like about this bike is it is manoeuvrable, it is flippy, and you can really get a lean on, and I've so far not had any issues with grip on the tyres. And I've ridden on dry roads, and it was wet this morning when I was coming back. Yeah, no, very confidence-inspiring tyres. I think they're a great choice. Be interested to see kind of what they wear like, or what other riders think of them over time. So pottering around lanes is you know, this bike feels perfectly at home here. So I'm going to go and find somewhere that's a little bit rougher. Now, I'm no off-road rider, so I'm not going to be giving this a real going over, but I'm probably going to do what most owners of this bike would do, which is the occasional bit of dirt track. There are a few green lanes around here. I'm not, if I'm being honest, really dressed for that. We've had a lot of rain. We've had torrential rain for the last couple of days, and I suspect that some of those green lanes are going to be pretty muddy and pretty tricky, and I'm not prepared for that today. We can go and have a look, we'll see what that's like, but most of the time this is going to be ridden on the road, and you're going to get the odd sort of gravel track or fire road that people are going to take it up. No doubt there'll be other owners that take them all over the place, and I think it's a very capable machine. I think this is a sort of machine that you could take pretty much anywhere. And there you can see it picks up really nicely, and it would be comfortable chugging along at motorway speeds all day long. It's funny, I get to ride a lot of bikes. I'm one of those people that likes to ride different bikes when I can, and quite often I'll ride a bike and I'll sort of finish riding it and go, yeah, that's okay, I like that, you know, talk about the good things and the bad things. Oh, nice, there we go. And the more I've been riding this today and doing this for this review, the more I've been enjoying it, and it's worrying me slightly that I might end up having to maybe chop the Street Twin in for one of these. And that's an interesting question. I mean, is this worth the change from a Street Twin? I think if I was looking at the two bikes in the showroom, this is for me, this is me being the weight I am, the height I am, and the kind of riding I would do, I would probably err towards the Street Scrambler. It just is, it's a more roomy cockpit. I'm not riding with as bent legs as I would do normally. You've still got the flexibility, the slickness and the smoothness of the gearbox and the motor that's in the Street Twin. You've just got the torque coming in a little bit lower. It's a difficult position to choose, really. As I've already got a Street Twin, would I make the switch up to the Scrambler? Well, there's the difference in the price. Obviously, it's essentially the same sort of bike. You know, you could put knobbly tyres on your Street Twin. Look at that pothole, what a beauty. You could put higher, wider bars. You still haven't quite got the ground clearance. I think the bigger front wheel here helps. I like the spoked wheels, but yeah, again, I've not had to wash them, so that's always, spoked wheels are great until you have to wash them, and then you wish you had cast wheels. But the question is, I suppose, would I swap my Street Twin for this bike? Well, if I could do that without having to spend any money, I think I probably would. It's got all the bits that I love about the Street Twin, and a few extra little bits that just make this a great bike for my needs. So there's a green lane down here. I'm coming out to the end. I've only ridden it one way, which is not the way that I'm heading to it. I used to have a DLZ 400 or a DLZ 400, and I used to hit a few of the green lanes, and I found this one. It is a very short one. I'll have a look, but I've got a feeling that it's been so wet for the last few days that it's not going to be unrideable. Well, they've metalled a lot of it. It's not going to be unrideable, but it is. I haven't got the gear on it, so I'll go as far as we can until we can find the mud. But again, on this ground you can stand up, you've got really good control. So at this point here where it might start to get a little bit muddy once we get into the trees. But actually it's harder ground in here than I was expecting. I don't know if they've done some work on it. When I came through here a couple of years ago on my DLZ, it was on my DLZ, look at me sounding all American, it was rutted and was pretty hard work, but it looks like they've actually metalled this and filled it in, unless I'm just not missing the worst bit. But and there you go, this is one thing. I see I could ride down here on the Street Twin if I was being honest. I wouldn't want to do it on the Thruxton R. Just stand up on it a little bit, I don't really need to. Boom. Yeah, a little bit more rutted here, but nothing desperate. Now I hadn't turned the traction control light off, so the traction control light's going a bit crazy. Yeah, you can see that if I give it a thump on the throttle, the traction control sticks in and goes, nope, you're not doing that. Cuts the power. So if you're a new novice rider to the dirt, you know, this is a safe machine to ride. But that's trimmed through here really nicely, and it's good fun. So let's have a look around the bike. There's that dual seat. You've got one section here. This rear section at the back can come off, and you can put a rack on there. There's a small Allen key that you probably can't see. There's a small Allen key at the back there. Undo that. You can take that off. Put a rack on there. Take that seat out. So much like the Street Twin, you've got the same frame rails pretty much at the back here. So the frame rails at the top are the same. However, this seat won't fit on here because there is an additional bar that sits through the middle here. Obviously this seat needs to latch somewhere, so somewhere around here there's a bar that pushes the latch. That latch cable can be unbolted and moved to one that is further back in here, which is where the stock seat goes, and you can attach that. But I'll do another video that shows you that. There is the standard exhaust with a slightly different side cover, and as you can see it kicks in quite nicely. And again, I've been riding this around. I can put my hand on the heat shield, no problem with that. That one gets hot, that one's not too bad. This one stays pretty cool. There is that bigger 19-inch spoked wheel with the Metzeler Tourance tyres on there. As I say, really good tyres. So you've got a different headlight arm here to the Street Twin. Nice looking headlight arm, but that will be the first thing I'll paint black, and that does mean that this sits on a floating mount. Now I've often thought perhaps you can put this mount on the Street Twin if you want to change these arms. The difference is there are threaded recesses on the bottom part here that are not on the Street Twin, so I guess you could do that if you particularly wanted to, but it's a lot of messing around. There's those bars, and there it is. Lovely looking bike. I think probably one of the 900 bikes in the range. This is probably the nicest looking. I like the treatment of that side pod with the sort of Scrambler number plate on it. These pegs, brake lever, very nice here, and the sprocket cover with a little heel guard I think is a really nice touch as well. So a really nice looking bike. Here we go, we'll show you what's going on with the clock. So as you can see, you have the Rev Counter, and then using the info button you can scroll through. That's where you can turn your traction control off and on, and your ABS off and on. If you just press and hold the button, there you go, traction control's off, and the light comes on to show you that it is off. There you've got your ABS. You can turn that on and off as well if you want to do that. You've got the amount of miles, so this bike's done 700 miles. You've got one trip, you've got a second trip recorder. You've got your current MPG as you're riding, which is why there's no display. Then you've got your average MPG, your range to empty, and the time, and then you're back on the Rev Counter. So very nice, easy, and clear to see. And the stock exhaust sounds pretty damn good. I'm not going to go too mad because I don't want to annoy the neighbours around here. Alright, so I'm not going to blather on too much more about this bike. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let's just head back down that green lane. And I'll keep quiet. fair, that was straightforward enough to do on any bike. It was moving around a little bit underneath me, but not much. But yeah, I'd be happy to be able to ride this around town, ride it on the motorways, and then jump into that kind of byway. People ask, well, let's give it a test from a standing start down this old bit of airstrip road. Picks up pretty nicely. So yeah, for what I want, I think this really is a bit of a do-it-all bike. It does mean that if you're out on these kind of country lanes and you do spot somewhere and you do want to go for a little bit of an explore, then yeah, do it. You're not going to get yourself into too much trouble if you're a pretty competent rider. Yeah, unless you find something really sticky. But I think these tyres will be pretty good, unless it's really thick, gloopy mud. I think these Metzeler Tourance tyres are gonna work really well. Yeah, really nice, easy bike to ride. Feels light, very manoeuvrable. You can chuck it around. It pulls up well, accelerates well. It feels nicely balanced. The clutch is light. The gearbox is slick. You've got a really nice fuel map on it, so there's no snatchy throttle. Just generally a very lovely piece of machinery to ride. This is a stock bike, it's pretty damn good. If you were to take the cat out or change to the Vance and Hines pipes, this bike would just sound better and better. But out of the factory doors, it's a wonderful sounding machine. And the more time I spend on it, the more I fear that I might be having to have a word with my accountant, otherwise known as my wife. Mind you, as I've always said, it is much easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. Yeah, that wouldn't be probably a popular move at the moment.
So there you go, that's my thoughts on the bike. The video was a bit longer this week than usual, but I wanted to make sure I conveyed as much information as I could about the bike. What is obvious from the video is how much I like the bike. Now, that's not really a surprise. I'm a big fan of the Street Twin. I've been enjoying riding and modifying my Street Twin for the last year and a half. And this is essentially the same bike, slight differences to the tune, very slight differences to the frame, bigger wheels, it's taller, wider bars, much more roomy, and that made for me a really nice experience. The Street Twin is great, but it's not a huge bike and I always felt a little bit cramped on it. This bike, not so much. I felt much more comfortable. That leads to a couple of questions. Number one, is this a good bike to buy? If you're looking for something that is light, manoeuvrable, practical, can be used in all weathers and in all conditions, I think this is a fantastic bike. It's easy to ride, it's very comfortable, you can chug along motorways, you can stick to tarmac A roads, and as long as it doesn't become too technical, you can take this off-road as well. So for me, it's a very appealing package for the type of riding and the conditions I ride in. Second question is, would I sell my Street Twin to buy one of these? And I've had a bit of time to think about that now, and I'm less emotive now. I've not just got off the bike, and I have to say probably not. I think the differences in the bikes are relatively marked, but maybe not enough. The Street Twin, I've already put Pirelli Scorpion Trail tyres on it. I haven't quite got the height advantage that you would have with the other bike, but if I was to fit some lower pegs, or indeed the Street Scrambler pegs and levers may well fit. I haven't established if that's a straight swap or not. You could put some higher bars on that, and you're not going to have a bike that's too dissimilar to the Street Scrambler. So for me, I probably could spend less money bringing the bike to a similar spec, considering now that the high level Vance & Hines 2-in-1 scrambler pipe that Triumph launched with the Street Twin has been slashed in price. You can pick that up now in the UK for around about £500 from your dealer, and that's half the price it was originally. So you could put the high level pipes on there, change your tyres, maybe put higher bars on there, change the foot pegs, and you're getting somewhere close to where that bike is. Now obviously you don't get the higher ride height and the rev counter and all that sort of stuff, but that's minimal. This is not a serious off-road bike, so the difference in the ground clearance is not going to be huge. If you've got a bash plate on your Street Twin, which I have on mine, that's going to take care of most of the problems. So for me, I don't think it's worth the extra expenditure to sell a Street Twin to buy a Street Scrambler. If you're in the market for that type of bike though, and you're looking at the two, it becomes a more difficult decision. I'd also like to take this opportunity again to thank Steve and Alex and Tom and Lee and the rest of the guys at Jack Lilley Romford for sorting this bike out. They really are top guys down there. So if you've got any requirements for Triumph parts, accessories or bikes and you're in the UK, have a chat to these guys. They're always willing to do a deal. The service is second to none. I can highly recommend them. So if you've enjoyed the video, please click on the subscribe button. That would be fantastic. I think there's a little logo down here somewhere you can do that. I'll put a link to the Jack Lilley website up there, so you've got their contact details if you want to go and talk to those guys. There'll be some videos in the end credits, and as usual, all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching, and until next time, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.